Our goal with the book is to make your finances simple so your life can be amazing. There's no like get rich quick stuff. There's no like, if you do this investment, you're going to get, an extra 3%. No, it's about how do you make things simple so that your finances you don't even worry about. You just go and enjoy your life. And if you're looking for a book to like optimize your finances down to the 10th of a point and do fancy investing, this is not it. The whole point I'm trying to get to is like, you want to get to a point where twice a year you check your finances like, oh, they're good. Yep, sure. And let it go. And then you can focus in on what matters to you.
Welcome to the Childfree Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
Hey, Childfree Wealth listeners, Dr. J here, just me today. Going to give you a little bit of the backstory about kind of how we got to this book, the new book, The Childfree Guide to Life and Money, kind of the good, bad, and ugly of what it took, some of the challenges, and also, let's be real, why some people should buy the book and read it. And if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you might have heard some of these stories in bits and pieces. I'm going to give you a little more background about the book, about me, about how it all came together, some of the challenges, and we'll take a little ride through the publishing area. In 2021, I became a certified financial planner. And when I was studying to become a CFP, the interesting thing was there was never once a mention of being child-free. It didn't exist. Like, it didn't exist in the literature, it didn't exist in the education. There's always an assumption that you will or you do have children. And when I was doing that, what was surprising to me is my wife and I are child-free, and like, maybe we're just weird, and maybe we're just not following the right script, and maybe, I don't know, like all this head trash came around. And I started researching it. And at the time, I didn't even know the term child-free exists. I found the Childfree subreddit. And if you've ever been on there, you know that's a bit of a cesspool at times. But it was my first exposure to the child-free community and even the term child-free. And I'm a researcher by nature. So my PhD is in adult learning. I'm a qualitative researcher. I want to understand how things work and how people tick. So that's what I did. I put an ad out on the Childfree subreddit, and it talked about share what your child-free life is like. Words like that. And we'll include a picture in the show notes. And really what I was trying to do was interview people about what it was like to be child-free and do a survey about it. Now, the first thing that kind of surprised me was that ad got flagged as hate speech. Hate directed at me, hate directed at others. And like, that bothered me. I'm just going to be transparent on it. Like, that still today bothers me. I did a little bit of research afterwards, and I found out that about half the folks in the Childfree subreddit are also in the parents subreddit. And for those people that were flagging it, more likely to be in the parents subreddit. Don't ask me why, okay? Like, just, we should all be able to live our own lives. But it was interesting. I got like 300 responses to the survey. I interviewed 27 people. And really, that's where the framework for all of this came from. And when I say framework, the thing is, before I started, there wasn't a mention of being child-free in any of the financial literature that I could find. For financial planners, we have a website. It's called kitces.com. Michael Kitts has been running that for years. He's got blog articles that are like 4,000 words plus. And kind of the rule is if there's no article on Kitces, it doesn't exist. That was the case for child-free. It didn't exist. So really, I was trying to figure out something that didn't exist. In the qualitative world, there's a method called grounded theory where you're kind of like starting out, you're like, I don't know the answer. Let me figure this out. Now, I'm not going to say I was that rigorous, but I was trying to figure out what it was like to be child-free, how to impact your life finances. The 26 folks that ended up in the Portraits for Child-Free Wealth book, that's the first one I did, really created this concept that is now child-free wealth, the way we do life and financial planning. Like, it's based on, the initial design was based on these people explaining what their life was like. And what I found was that they had some amazing lives. Being child-free didn't automatically make them rich. Some were rich, some were poor, some were having trouble, some were doing great. But as a whole, they were happy. In the survey we did, and we can look at the actual results of the survey, something like 94% of folks said they're happy with their life. That's insane. That is the highest number I've ever seen in adults in the US about being happy. And the ones that said, no, we're not happy, they even made a note. They said, no, it's not because I'm child-free. It's because of I have medical issues and other things. But what we found was child-free folks have a different life, different set of finances, different needs, but overall, they're pretty happy with their choice. That started the Portraits book. The Portraits book, I self-published, got to get it out there. And it was the start of getting child-free wealth to exist. As an interesting side note, at the time I had two websites. One was Childfree Wealth, the other one was Live, Learn, Plan. I kind of had one for facing parents, one for facing child-free folks. Yeah, that lasted for about 6 months, and then I gave up and just said, no, I'm going to just serve child-free people. But I did that because I wasn't sure if this was going to work. I mean, let's be real. When you're creating something that hasn't been done before, that's a challenge. In research, my advisor, when I was in my PhD program, always said it this way, that there's often a gap in the research for a reason. Just because there's a gap does not mean you should fill it. And that's one of the questions I had when I started into this. Maybe there isn't a need for child-free people and child-free finances and child-free life. But turns out, spoiler alert, yeah, there is, but I just didn't know it. So I did this Portraits of Child-Free Wealth book. I self-published it, put it out, and went to press. And I do a lot of press. I've done 700 press hits over the past, since 2021, and started getting some traction. The book got me in the door. We ended up on the same day having an article published in MarketWatch, who called Child-Free Financial Planning the best new thing in retirement. And Wall Street Journal did a full article on the topic on the same day. Not planned by me, just kind of pure luck. Well, those two together launched what is now Child-Free Wealth, what is now my future, what is my focus. And some of that comes from hard work, some of that's luck. I just got to be transparent on that. But at the same time, that was about when Roe got overturned. And that started changing a lot of the discussions around being child-free. I had to make some big decisions on the company to protect our clients' privacy. Actually, I had to invest a bunch of money into the company that originally didn't have planned, change the way the company was structured to protect the privacy of our clients. Won't bore you with the compliance details, but the bottom line is I was under the state of Mississippi, which unfortunately is nosy about reproductive rights, and I had to move to being under the SEC, which is at the federal level and not so nosy. We started working on this, and it's getting some press, getting some traction, and I'm on Facebook. I'm now in a bunch of the child-free Facebook groups, getting to know folks, getting to talk to folks, and getting to know more than just the Reddit group. And someone messages me out of the blue and says, hey, I read your book. That was cool. Do you have another in mind? And what happened was someone who worked at Source Books, who is actually the group that published my second book now, The Child-Free Guide to Life and Money, had read the book, passed it on to an editor within the company and said, hey, this is cool. And when that editor reached out to me and said, hey, do you have a second book? The answer, of course, is yes. I had actually started working on it, but it was on the back burner, trying to figure out priorities. But if they have an interest, let's have this discussion. So we started having a discussion, and Erin was my editor at the time, and Erin's child-free. Her and her dog Cheddar are actually in the book. At the time, they were living in a different Airbnb each month across the country. I mean, almost like a stereotypical child-free soloist life. Loved it. So it was a perfect match. And Source Books was an interesting match for me too, because Source Books had done a lot of work on titles of either disenfranchised groups or people who didn't have a voice. And I thought that was a good match for where we went. Started working on the process. I had never worked with a publisher like this. I had done some couple textbooks, but that's not the same. And started kind of going through the contract process. And we came to an agreement. I'll be fully transparent. You don't make a lot of money making books. It's less than $2 a copy is what I get for it. If I figured it out hourly, I don't even make minimum wage. But it's really about getting the message out there so that people everywhere can look at their life, they look at their finances and see how this fits. In the negotiation, we started talking about, well, I want to make sure courses are integrated in there. So people who read the book get free access to our Childfree Academy. They get to dive into more information. We do Q&As, all that. They have more support. But we got kind of stuck a little bit in the contract. What it was is they call it a morality clause, but the clause in the contract that said, if this topic gets too controversial, the publisher reserves the right to pull the book. I was like, I don't think I can agree to this. This is a month or two after Roe got overturned. A lot of this stuff I'm dealing with at the state level and the politics, like I just couldn't. And luckily, Aaron worked with us and we were able to get through that. We were able to update some of the language and good confidence that, no, it's not going to get pulled because people are debating, reproductive rights or anything like that. But that was big for a publisher to agree to that. It's one of those kind of worries. And this was August of 2023 that we were talking through this. I had to actually contribute a little before that, but I had to get the book to them, the entire manuscript to them by August 1st of 2023. Why August 1st? Why not? Because that's Childfree Day. We actually, on that day, had done a billboard in Times Square supporting Childfree Day, so that was really cool. But it takes almost 18 months from the time you sign a contract to the time of it being published. And people don't often think about that. Like writing the book itself was somewhat easy for me. I had done all the research. At that point, I had met with hundreds of people, understood the child-free population. It's kind of weird. Like I'm looking through the book now recently, and I'm like, well, I don't know. There's some things I would change it if I did it this time. There's always like things you would update and fight with it. So you have to like draw the line somewhere because I'd always like to add more. And it's one of those things where you have to find that balance. And the book had to be done 18 months before it came out. The book's scheduled to come out December 31st, 2024. And we were done in August of 2023. It's people think about publishing and like, oh, great, you're going to get this book out. Yeah, you are. Like years later, it's kind of what it feels like. So I've been working on this off and on for the past almost 2 years now. The actual writing process, the way I tend to do things is I will outline essentially the chapters. I knew I wanted to, when I designed the book, start with life planning, then go to your finances, then go to taxes. That's the same process we follow with our clients. And that was the easy part. But then, like, what does it mean to plan a meaningful child-free life? What does it mean to challenge the life script and write your own life script? How do you do that? How is that different if you're a couple, you're an individual? How is it different where you are in your stage of life? All these big, big, deep questions. And I'm going to be transparent. The book does not answer how to do it. What it answers are, here are the questions to ask in your life planning. And the reason is, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book. Like you have to pick which adventure you want to run, and then we can make it work. Where for parents or people following the standard life script, there's kind of a step-by-step thing you do. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house, you work 25 years, save for retirement, pass somebody to generation. It's like pretty, linear, let's call it that. And it's pretty similar parent to parent. If you look at two parents' financial plans, they're very, very similar. The numbers change, but the actual structure doesn't. Like in the CFP literature, they talk about life stages and how does that fit? And they're like, these are what you expect. Well, when we're not following that script, it kind of messes things up. I think to the positive, but it messes things up. So we need to figure out that life stuff first. And the problem is I can't give you a script because I don't know your life. Your life has to be yours. When we meet with clients, we'll ask them kind of, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they kind of laugh at me and they'll go, well, nobody's ever asked me that question. I'm like, that's the point. That's the point, is to ask these questions and do the reflection. If you are a journaler, I encourage you, when you read the book, like go a chapter or two, then journal your thoughts about it. and keep going. And what you'll find is by the time you get to the end, you'll actually probably have a different answer than when you started. But really, we had to create the book so that it would take people through this journey in life planning that I would normally spend 6 or 12 months with them, working with them one-on-one to develop. Now, I'm not going to say we covered everything. That's impossible, and that's usually the things that drive me crazy. But I had this general framework, the way I work with clients, the way it works, started putting that down. The actual writing process is one of those kind of weird things. If you haven't tried writing a book, it can be a challenge. There's a month called NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, in November. Challenge there is to write 50,000 words in 1 month. It's a little crazy. The book itself had to be about 75,000 words. I took 3-4 days off, went out on the boat, and I had thought about it. I had already had kind of like the framework in my brain. And in about 4 days, I was able to write about 30,000 words of it. That was crazy. I'm not even sure how that happened, but just kind of like it came out. Then there'll be other times where I'm editing and it's moving slow and like it's a back and forth process, but the result is good. Now, I will say one of the challenges when you submit a book to a publisher is you never know what the editor is going to do. And realistically, you don't have too much control. I got to choose from the top like 5 titles for the book. In the end, they went to focus groups and marketing, and they kind of get to pick what that is. In the structure of the book, the editor's like, this is the way I think these chapters should be organized. This is the way I think this should be. It was actually a great idea. But at the same time, as an author, you're like, don't mess with my baby. It is one of those balancing acts. The cover, I'll be frank, this is yellow. I would have never picked yellow, but I like it now. They went out and tested it. Saw a whole bunch of different versions. Cool. They have a whole process. We get through the kind of standard process to create the book. And at the time, we broke into 2 sections, the life section and the financial section. The financial section's a bit more, has a few more answers. Like if you want to invest, it talks about how to save and invest, talks about insurance, talks about long-term care, all that fun stuff with specific tasks. I could do that on the financial side, couldn't do it on the life side. And then we start sending out the books for feedback. And if you want to be an author, the editing process, probably the first one that sucks. The getting feedback from people is where you get really nervous. Posted the Portrait of Childfree Wealth book. I had actually posted it for pre-sale. And somebody had, before we even listed the book for sale, actually for sale, just in pre-sale, wrote a nasty gram on Amazon about how, essentially a tirade about how child-free people shouldn't have to worry about anything because, we have a simple life and child-free people suck. How can you even put this stuff without even knowing what the book is? Yeah, but that's what we have to get used to. I'm sure we're going to have some of the same stuff with this book. By the way, if you do read the book, please, please, please go on Amazon or your favorite bookstore and leave reviews. It does matter. I want your feedback too, but we started getting feedback and we went out to other authors and they do these things called book blurbs. These little here's what we thought about the book. And Doc G, Jordan Grummett, who runs the Earn and Invest podcast, I've been on his podcast. He's actually been on our podcast again. He's got a new book coming out, The Purpose Code. Great book. Sent it to him. And his book blurb actually makes it the cover of the book. And he says it this way. As the percentage of child-free couples grows, I fully expect this book to become a classic. Classic. Wow. It's one of those I don't know where it's going to go. I've got my own thoughts about is it good or bad, but you can't be a judge of your own work. You really can't. You have to let it go and let people respond. And people ask me kind of what does the book contain or kind of are there titles like it? In the book world, they call them comps, comparables. And as if you took the book, The Simple Path to Wealth, plus Die with Zero, put them together with a child-free spin. That's rough, but let's go with it. But with a lot more life planning in it. And I'll be frank, the financial stuff in it is pretty normal. There's nothing fancy there. Our goal with the book is to make your finances simple so your life can be amazing. There's no get rich quick stuff. There's no if you do this investment, you're going to get, an extra 3%. No, it's about how do you make things simple so that your finances you don't even worry about. You just go and enjoy your life. And if you're looking for a book to like optimize your finances down to the 10th of a point and do fancy investing, this is not it. The whole point I'm trying to get to is like, you want to get to a point where twice a year you check your finances like, oh, they're good. Yep, sure. And let it go. And then you can focus in on what matters to you. I will say some of the things in here will challenge you. For example, most child-free folks don't want to pass on money to the next generation as a priority, often kind of die with zero or want to wind down your wealth. Well, if that's the case, you can actually have too much money. There's a good chance if you've been diligently saving towards either financial independence or FIRE, that you may already have enough money that you can quit work now, that you can live a different path now. You can embrace what we call FILE, financial independence, to live early. It's outlined in the book. And it's really this balance between work and life and what do you want to do and cutting back, dialing back, doing what you enjoy, following your passions. And that's the stuff that really gets me fired up about it. When people have read it, and I've now been fortunate to talk to people that have read the book, given feedback. For my clients, I've used a couple of them as guinea pigs. They said it was like having my voice in their head. And I was like, I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but all right, like I'll take it. There's a lot of continuity between what we talk about in the podcast, what we talk about with our clients, and the book, which is intentional. But it's really a guide to say, all right, here's where we start. Here's the next steps. Here's where we go. And there's some things in there that you won't find in other financial planning books. So, for example, we have a program in there we call 8 No Baby Steps. The 8 No Baby Steps, it's a little tongue-in-cheek against like the Dave Ramsey 7 Baby Steps. Interesting side note, he's got a plan for everything except for having kids. Kids come whenever, but all the other finances need to be planned. Don't want to go into that here, but that's just something to think about. But we have the 8 No Baby Steps, and No Baby Step 7 is, what is your plan for your parents? And people don't think about that. And it's often one of those not talked about in financial planning books. But it's like, as child-free folks, you often get well, you don't have kids, so you can take care of mom. And it's even worse for the soloists. And the soloists, by the way, are single, no kids. But for the soloists, like, oh, well, you don't have kids and you're single, you can move back in with mom. Like, no, like that's a choice I might do. My wife and I have a hard and fast rule, nobody lives with us, but like, that's not necessarily the way I want to live my life. And that needs to be part of your planning. It's things like that are in this book that you're not going to see elsewhere. It's also got all the answers to the questions about like, who's going to take care of me when I'm older? And, like, how do I plan for long-term care? We even have a proposed solution in there for who makes decisions for you when you can't. We have a new product coming out next year. We're calling the Childfree Trust, now trademarked and patent pending. There's a little teaser of that in the book. The fun part of that is I had to write that in the book 18 months ago, and now I have to deliver it this year. So that's kind of one of those like, put your money where your mouth is. But we're getting there. We're getting close, and we're really trying to answer the hard questions. Now, I actually think the life questions are harder than the financial questions, because if you figure out the life questions, the financial questions just fall into place. And that's the point. Now, in transparency, as I look through the book, we've got these mini episodes you've been listening to with a little review of a bunch of different chapters of the book. They don't all apply to you. I want you to take this book, and you don't have to read it cover to cover. I don't even think you should. But look at the sections that matter to you. And for example, there's one in the life section on your legacy. What do you want your impact to be when you leave this world? Great question. I've been reframing this lately as, what do you want that second line of your obituary to say? If you're a parent, the second line says, Jay, father of 4, leaves behind, and their names. We're not doing that. I've been thinking about it a lot, and my second line is something like, Jay was a loving husband, a world traveler, an author, and an innovator. Let's be real, I'm actually not traveling the world right now, but got to be aspirational. But it's about figuring out what matters to you. And if you figure out that legacy, what matters to you, you can then translate to the finances. If you're just starting off, there's a whole bunch of stuff on getting out of debt, budgeting, cool. If you got that handled, skip those. Go to investing. you can figure out what works for you. Now, little kind of how to use this book. In the book itself, and if you're watching the video, you can see this, there are QR codes in many of the chapters. And those go into our Childfree Academy. When you buy the book, you get 30 days free of the Childfree Academy. And it has a video and extra readings and other information in there to take you deeper. Book's kind of like a place to start, and then you can go into the courses. We're also offering regular Q&A sessions. Those are live, where you can go and ask your questions. So you'll be able to do that as part of what you're doing. We're hoping to build a good-sized community that can come in together and ask those questions. All that's included in the book. And, as you're walking through this, this book, let's see, it says $18.99 in the US. It is going to also be out on audiobook. Don't have the release date on that yet. We're also planning on some international releases. Stay tuned for that. If you're outside the US, I can't provide you investment advice, but you can read the book. If you're inside the US, it's got, if you even want to work with us as a client, all that, it's in there. But it's got everything you should be able to use to create this do-it-yourself plan with a little bit of help. There's a reason why we have the academy set up and the courses, all that. We want to provide ongoing support what we can, and you can come bring your questions. And what we found in the Q&A when we've done them is often people have the same questions over and over, and the group is great because oh, that's right, I had that question too, where you can have some of that interaction. The book itself comes out December 31st. In full transparency, I really would appreciate it if you buy it in advance. The reason why pre-orders are so important to me is, I'll be honest, about bestseller lists. So there's a game in books in that any books that you sell in advance of the launch date, so in advance of December 31st, get counted as if came out in December. And that first week is the one that matters for bestseller lists, the algorithms, all that fun stuff. It's a little crazy. I have a goal to hit one of the national bestseller lists because we haven't seen child-free titles on those. If you look at the New York Times bestseller list, never seen a child-free title on there. Now, mind you, to get on that list, I have to sell 7,500 copies. That's a lot of books. But you each can buy one and tell your friends, and they can buy one, and we keep going. The point is the community itself is where this book came from. I just got to put it all in pieces and put it together. The community itself is what it's helping. And hopefully you learn something on the way by. Take a look at it. If you read it, review it, that'd be great. Share it with your friends. That'd be awesome. Go to your local library. Buy the book at your local bookstore. You don't always have to buy it at the big online bookstore. It'd be great if you do it at the local bookstore. Spread the word. We need to be supporting our child-free community as a whole. And I hope this book is just one step in that direction.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available, or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Childfree Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.